The Sodasamsa, or sixteenths of signs, creates a chart that's all about luxury. So you can use this chart to get a zoomed in or fine-tuned interpretation of what kind of comforts and luxuries you have access to. So this chart will explain a couple of key things. First of all, how easy is it for you to feel satisfied? Second of all, when you do feel satisfied, how satisfied do you feel? Is it a deep satisfaction or is it just a superficial satisfaction? And thirdly, what is it that brings you that sense of comfort or satisfaction? Also, the chart is really not just focused on emotional satisfaction. It's also focused on the physical wealths that are the triggers for that emotional satisfaction. So it has to do with your luxuries. So from this chart, you can really see what's the quality or the amount or significance of your wealth and property. What kind of property do you own? How much of it do you own? What quality is it? And it will also show you what is your attitude towards your possessions. Are you the kind of person who needs a lot of possessions to feel satisfied? Are you the kind of person who is satisfied without having many possessions? If you want to know what this means to you and your chart, I have just released a brand new and very groundbreaking report that explores exactly that, all of the subdivisions for your chart. It's available now on my site, victorcarrot.com. The Sodasamsa is one of the 5 zodiacal subdivisions of the zodiac. It's a zodiac within the zodiac. The architecture of it is based on sixteenths. You take the zodiac and for each sign, split it into 16 equal parts. Then go to the beginning of Aries and name those parts, starting from Aries and going in sequential order. And don't stop going. Just keep that sequential order going around the whole zodiac. Some very important patterns emerge from doing that. If you figure out how often the zodiac will repeat, if you divide everything into 16, you'll realize that it's 22 and a half degrees. Every 22 and a half degrees, you get back to Aries. So you see this hits the 90, 180, and 270. It also divides that in half and hits the 45 degree marks in between all of those. And it also, again, divides each one of those in half. So what this chart is emphasizing is the Kendra, the square, especially the fundamental Kendra, which is the 4th house. And this is why it follows the symbolic meanings of the 4th house, which is how happy are you? How easily are you satisfied? How comfortable are you? What are your possessions? What are your wealths? Now, this chart and the subdivision is all about the harmony of the square. So what that harmony does is it makes every sign start with its own modal quadruplicity. So what I mean is Aries is a cardinal sign. It starts with a cardinal sign in the 16th. And every cardinal sign will start with a cardinal sign in the 16th. Taurus is a fixed sign. It starts with another fixed sign, Leo. Gemini is a dual sign. It starts with another dual sign, Sagittarius. So this is giving us an important insight into what makes people peaceful, what makes people calm, what makes people satisfied. Consistency does. Consistency in how you go about things. Because that's what this consistency of modal quadruplicities is telling us. This is the chart of happiness and peace and comfort. And in this chart, every sign begins with a sign of its own modality. Another thing that happens as a result of making all these squares is that you have no opposites anymore. Usually in the zodiac, we have a dynamic of opposites, which is what gives the square a sense of kind of maleficness or difficultness in a lot of interpretive frameworks. But in this subdivision, there's a square without oppositions. It's a harmonious square. That's why it's the 4th house. The symbolism is resonant with the 4th house. What do I mean there's no oppositions? Go ahead and look at any one of these divisions and then check the one that's 180 degrees apart from it. It'll be the same. 180 degrees away from any Aries 16th is another Aries 16th. 180 degrees from any Taurus 16th is another Taurus 16th. Another very important thing that you can understand about life by just looking at what this D16 chart is, it has to do with how the elements work here. Every fire sign starts with itself. So Aries starts with Aries. Leo starts with Leo. Sagittarius starts with Sagittarius. What does that tell you about what makes the fire psychology type feel happy? The fire psychology type feels happy when it has initiative and when it is able to pursue its own interests. Every water sign, on the other hand, doesn't start with itself, it ends with itself. So what does that tell you about the water type of psychology and what makes that type of person happy? The water type of psychology is searching for itself. It's evolving towards itself. It feels happy if it's making progress towards getting a clearer picture and understanding of itself. Every air sign in the D16 starts with its opposite sign. What does that tell you about this psychological archetype, the air archetype, and what makes that type of person happy? It tells you that the air archetype is interested in the other person. That's what draws it out to communicate and interact and exchange. It wants to get to know and become more like the other person. That's what makes it feel happy. If it's not interacting with people that are different from it, it does not feel content. And finally, the earth signs in this 16th subdivision, they end with their opposite sign. So they're dedicated to their partner. The air sign is beginning from the partner and it's inspired by the partner. The earth sign is similar, but it's dedicated to the partner and it's giving its efforts towards benefiting the partner. That's what makes the earth archetype psychology in a human being feel at peace, feel happy with itself, if it's able to benefit his partner in the long run. Now, I'm sure you would like to know what your D16 chart looks like, because this is very important information to know about yourself. So again, I have that available for you in my new report, the module called Subdivisions. You can get it right now, victorguerra.com. But I'll also show you how you can calculate it yourself. What you really simply need to do is know the positions of your planets, which you already know anyway if you have a chart. And then just divide the 30 degrees of a sign by 16. Then you'll figure out that each one of these sixteenths is a certain amount of degrees long, 1.875 degrees long. You just divide any planet's degree by that number, round it up, and you'll know which one of the sixteenths in that sign that planet is in. Once you figure that out, you make a chart and you start that process with the ascendant. Whatever sign the ascendant has in the sixteenths, you write that in this chart as the first house, the ascendant's house of the 16th. Then you go counterclockwise in order around the chart, just following the natural sequence of signs. And you've now set up which signs are which houses in this subchart. From there, all that's left to do is put the planets where they belong. And in this process, what you're doing is collecting all of the Capricorns into one place, collecting all the Aquariuses into one place, and that's why it's called a collection or a Varga. What you notice that's very interesting about D16 is that Rahu and Ketu become one thing. They're not two different things anymore because they're always 180 degrees apart, and in this chart, 180 degrees apart is always the same sign. Once you have this whole chart assembled, you can interpret this like any regular chart, just focusing it towards the theme of this is what makes me happy, this is what makes me not happy. And I'll go over that with you in future videos. But in this video, I want to show you some things that might not be obvious. And these are more like overview techniques of the whole theme of this whole entire chart. The first thing you can do is figure out the overall amount of dignity that's in this subdivision. And that is going to tell you in a broad sense how comfortable you are or how uncomfortable you are in general. And then you can get a little specific with the specific implications of the chart. For example, it talks about how easily do you get satisfaction. So if the chart has a lot of positivity, then you become satisfied easily. You're not particularly picky and you don't have high demands and things. Little things satisfy you. You're easily pleased. Whereas if it's a lot of negativity in this chart, a lot of low dignity in this chart, then you have a hard time being satisfied even when causes for satisfaction are present. You can also use this information about the depth of satisfaction. The more positive, the more deeply you're affected by your satisfaction. You can't really use it to understand the cause of satisfaction. To understand the causes of your satisfaction, you need to go and look at specific details in the chart. You can also, however, use it to get an overview of wealth and property. The more positivity in this chart, the more in general you have prosperity and wealth. The more easy it is to get that. And your attitudes towards possessions too will be simpler the more there's positivity in this chart. The more there's negativity in this chart, the more you feel hungry for possessions and you feel like you don't have enough. So this gives an overall picture, and later on you can go and sculpt out the exact details and the nuances of it by looking at the more specific things in the chart. But this is a really important first step for getting to know the chart in the broadest sense. And that's how my report presents it to you in that positive negative format with those red and green bars. Another thing that the report gives is this list, which is sorted by the dominance of the planets in this particular subchart. So here you can see Saturn is very dominant in this chart, and then a little less dominant is Mars, etc. And if you want to know exactly how much more or less dominant, you can look at those graphs that are underneath each planet's line. The way that you figure this out is by seeing how much the planet is aligned with the degree of the sun, moon, and ascendant in this subdivision, and a couple of other factors. So you can look at it and say, well, third house Saturn is the dominant thing in this chart. They probably enjoy solving problems. I got this task done. Completion of tasks gives satisfaction to the person. Underneath that, they have Mars and Scorpio in the seventh house. So that combination of Scorpio in the seventh house and Mars, well, they're probably a passionate person. They enjoy romantic things. That really brings them satisfaction. Like that, you can analyze each planet. And the higher its dignity, the more it contributes to finding your happiness. The lower the dignity, the more it interferes with it. The higher up it is on the list, the more dominantly this is a part of how you go about experiencing happiness. The report also gives you kind of like a head start or a helping hand getting out of the gate with this kind of interpretation by translating it into like a verbal format. The lower down you go on this list, the more subliminal the things get. And the list is also revealing that the lower planet is kind of the root of support, the background of the higher planet. So in this case, the person that has this Saturn in the third house is their most dominant thing, but it's being supported by this Mars in the seventh. So finally, a really useful and maybe easily overlooked tool in this list are these little symbols, a right side up triangle, upside down triangle, or a flag. This particular list doesn't have an upside down triangle, and that is a great thing for this particular individual because upside down triangles identify things that you do too much of. They aren't really so useful for you, but you're doing them anyway. So by putting the upside down triangle on it, what the report is trying to do is bring it to your attention that you should do less of this. You should do this less obviously. You should downplay this. There's nothing in this chart because none of the high-ranking dominant planets have a low dignity. But you'll get an upside-down triangle in your list if you have a planet with low dignity in a division that's at the top or towards the top of the dominance list. Conversely, you'll get a right-side-up triangle if you have a planet with high dignity that's low in the list. So we find that here in the notes. So that means for happiness' sake, this person could recognize their need to be different. They can embrace it more. not try to fit in as much. Finally, one thing that this list doesn't really get so great is it has a lot of flags. You can see them here circled. What's a flag all about on this list? Flag is showing where you have a weird or a jarring transition from one type of planet to another type of planet. Flags really are more significant the higher up they are on the list. So for example, the person starts off with Saturn as the most dominant planet in the Sodasamsa. So that means they like working, they're happy working, they like finishing tasks, and they like figuring out, because it's Saturn in the third house, they like figuring out how not to get beaten, how to be better than others. And that's being driven by their motivations, their Mars, their ambitions, their desires. That makes sense. There's no flag on that Mars, right? Because it's obvious how Mars would drive Saturn. But then what's driving Mars is Venus. And that's what I'm talking about by a jarring transition between two types of planets. Venus and Mars are two types of planets. One is selfish, one is selfless. So what's going on inside this person is their sense of love for people is what's giving them this like heightened desire and ambition and romanticness. And that is then causing them to want to do work, to want to get their jobs done and everything. People are not really going to see that love. It's going to be too confusing for them because it comes right after these more malefic feeling things. So when you have a situation like this, if your list has a flag like this, what it means is beware. People are going to get that part wrong about you. They're not going to see that part about you. That part is going to confuse them or feel weird to them, feel maybe untrustable. So you should be careful about that. And you should take more time with it and make sure that you ease into it or show it more carefully. Now, the only remaining question is, how do you get this report so that you can get this information for yourself? That's fairly easy. You go to my website, victorcara.com, and you click on the readings link. And then you select what module you want. If you want the basic chart interpreted, get the basic module. And if you want all of your subdivisions, including the Saptamsha interpreted, then you click to include also the subdivisions module. And then you click this to enter your birth data, and then you click this button to order it. Please don't forget to like and comment, and your likes and your comments help YouTube recognize that this video is something that should be shown to new people. So please help out with that. Thank you so much.